What it do, golf fans? Welcome back to the Turn Dogs Golf Podcast. This is Liam. Alongside me is nobody. I'm running solo today. Jack is currently in a golf course somewhere in the United States. If you can find him, feel free to yell at him for me. But he is missing in action, probably somewhere letting his frustrations out on a golf course because he shot 73 for the first time. But no, he didn't play. I played with him a little bit this weekend. He wasn't thrilled, but he is playing today, and I'm sure he's playing great golf. But because he's on a golf course, he is not here for the podcast. Um, to anybody that's new, welcome to the new season. We are in the fall spring, or wow, the fall swing. Words are nice, words are important. We are a golf podcast. Usually it's me alongside Jack. We'll go over highs, lows of the previous week. We'll talk about our wins, our losses, everything in between. You'll get all the information. Obviously, this week is the Pro Core. In a couple weeks, we have the Ryder Cup. I'll go over some highlights on the Ryder Cup, but admittedly, Jack is much more of the golf guy when it comes to stuff like that for the Ryder Cup. I can just kind of highlight guys that I think got snubbed from the team and things like that. Because newsflash, I do think somebody got snubbed. Who do you replace is a bit more of a question of who you prefer, but I think somebody was snubbed from the team. Beyond that, we'll get into kind of how the rankings rank down for the upcoming week. We'll do all that through DraftKings. We'll give you a lineup on DraftKings, FanDuel. We'll give you some bets, and then we'll pick some winners. Right now, for the Pro Core this week, there is no FanDuel currently out. It is at 2:30 Central Time on Monday afternoon. There is no current FanDuel lineup, so because of that, I don't have a lineup for you. Just interlock the guys that I've discussed throughout this that I'll discuss throughout this, and that'll have to be your lineup. Unfortunately, I don't really have a better instance for you to use. Just some notes because we didn't really discuss Tour Championship since we haven't had a podcast since then. Shout out to Tommy Fleetwood. Congratulations on the win. Uh, I'm still not a fan of the format of the whole system of the Tour Championship, but good for the guy to beat 29 of the best players in the world. I saw some people that joked that he still couldn't beat a full field of 155 or whatever, but he can beat the 29 best players in the world in the Tour Championship. I thought that was kind of funny. But obviously, yes, his winning woes are interesting, needless to say, because he can't win in normal fields, but he can win in major events like a Tour Championship. So good for him. Some of the best priced options that Jack and I were all over Tour Championship. Ben Griffin, who finished T10. Cam Young, who finished T4. Russell Henley, who finished T2. Our misses were Hideki Matsuyama, who finished 29th. As far as, see, I made a mistake here. I started pulling up stuff for the new season, and I did not pull up everything from last year to go over all of the wins to end the season. So let me do that real quick. All right. So for my FanDuel lineup, I'll start with FanDuel. I had Rory McIlroy, who finished T23rd. I had Henley, who finished second. Victor Hovland finished 12th. Cam Young finished 4th. Ben Griffin finished 10th. Jacob Bridgman, who was the minimum price, T27. DraftKings was pretty similar. Rory T23, Victor Hovland 12, Cam Young 4, Ben Griffin T10, Hideki 29th, and Jacob Bridgman 27th. As far as bets go, Jack did solid on his bets. He has, let's see, I think four wins. This past, I guess, Tour Championship. Because of that, he's up 2.54 units. So he ended the year. Oh man, what did he end the year up? See, he's got all this on his own numbers, and he doesn't like telling me his numbers. I think about 45 units up for the year. Jack was what he ended up being. It might have been 44.5. It might have been 45.5, but it was roughly 45 units for the year. I'll make sure he updates it and we get it set up for the Ryder Cup call, needless to say. But that was nice. His only loss was Hovland, top 10, who I think finished 12th or 13th. But he had Scotty, Rory, Ludwig, Henley, or Fleetwood to winner. He had Russell Henley, top 10, winner. He had Cantlay over Morikawa, winner. And he had Harry Hall over Justin Rose, who was a winner. For his winner's picks, he had Scotty to win by 2+ strokes. That was a loss, but he did take Tommy Fleetwood at 14.5 to 1. So that is another winner. I think that's actually a few winners in a span of, I think, 5 or 6 weeks for us. I think we had 3 winners because he also picked Scotty by 2+ at the BMW. So bit of a heater going on there. And then he had Ben Griffin top 5 at plus 475. Obviously, that was a miss. For my bets, I had Jacob Bridgman over Andrew Novak. That was a loss. I had Akshay Bhatia over Chris Gotterup. That was a loss. But then I had Cam Young over Sam Burns, and that was a win. So I lost 1 unit on the week, and I ended the year up 19.32 units, which all things considered is respectable. I'm up 20 units on the year. Jack was up 45. So that puts us as a group up 65 units on the year. Hopefully you followed for that sake. And then my wild card was Patrick Can't Close, aka Patrick Can't Lay, to finish top 5 at plus 300, which was a win. And so with that, for wild cards for the year, I went 18 wins, 25 losses. Considering every wild card was at least a plus 200 at the minimum. It's a pretty good year for me, all things considered. I don't know if that is standard or not. It feels like it's not, because I definitely should have won like closer to 12 to 13 just based on odds and metrics. So if you follow those two, you are also up money on the year, which is great. But overall, I'm not going to dig too far into the Tour Championship just because it was like 3 weeks ago now. But congrats to Tommy Fleetwood. Beyond that, since the Tour Championship, we now have the Ryder Cup that came out, or at least the teams. So on the USA team, we have Scotty Scheffler, JJ Spawn, Xander Schauffele, Russell Henley, Bryson, Harris English, Justin Thomas, Patrick Cantlay, Sam Burns, Ben Griffin, Cam Young, and Morikawa. If you're asking me, I think there's one guy that potentially got snubbed. Maverick McNeely. I think Maverick McNeely has a case to potentially be on the team. Now, I don't know who you take out. I don't think you take out Sam Burns. You maybe take out Morikawa for Maverick McNeely. Like, that seems aggressive. But overall, I think Maverick McNeely probably should have made this team one way or another. Somebody should have been replaced. As long as it wasn't Ben Griffin. That was the important part. Maybe Cam Young. Cam Young versus Maverick McNeely. I get that too. It's a close one. But Cam Young played so great the last 6 weeks. So I think that is the only point of contention I have. You can ask me who the UK team is. I honestly couldn't tell you. Let's take a look here real quick. Yeah, Ludwig Bear, Matt Fitzpatrick, Tommy Fleetwood, Terrell Hatton, Rasmus Højgaard, Victor Hovland, Shane Lowry, Robert McIntyre, Rory McIlroy, John Rahm, Justin Rose, and Seb Straka. So they're bringing back 11 of the 12 guys they had in a previous Ryder Cup team. The only new face is Rasmus Højgaard, which will be very interesting. They're going to be very seasoned. They'll potentially be favorited. I know people don't want to hear that. I know like 95 to 98% of our listeners are American, but I think the UK team is going to be a tough team to beat at the Ryder Cup this year. So we'll see how the team goes. When Jack comes back, obviously it'll be Ryder Cup week. We'll have him give his in-depth thoughts and opinions on the Ryder Cup teams as a whole. You know Jack is good for that. He loves to talk his mouth on stuff like that. But this week we are going to the Procore Championship at the Silverado Resort in like Napa Valley. I'm going to call it Napa Valley in California. This is a par 72, totaling 7,100 yards, so it's not a long course by any means. This is also likely the strongest field we will ever see at this event, as 10 of those 12 Americans on the U.S. Ryder Cup team are actually playing this week. The only ones that aren't are obviously Bryson DeChambeau because of the LIV versus PGA stuff, which is still stupid to this day. And then Xander Schauffele, who's not playing either for whatever reason. Statistically speaking, this course is the truest definition of an average PGA Tour course. being accurate off the tee, I guess, is generally better than being long, but all things considered, it's not a technically overpowering course that's going to have you win one way or another. I think considering most of the golfers here haven't played in like 5 to 6 weeks of real life golf, you probably aren't going to use too much course fit models over just statistical data. How do guys do to end the season is more important to me than like, well, last year they were really good at this. I'm less worried about that now. If they ended the year on like a 6 or 7 week stretch of great golf, or if I know that they're good statistically at this course in terms of course history, that's a little bit more of what I'm looking into than anything else. With that, let's get into DraftKings pricing. So the way this will work is I'm going to go through the DraftKings player pool. It has everybody broken down on their price points. So it starts at Scotty Scheffler at 14,400. It goes all the way down to the Stoneman at 6,000, which is like Gunnar Wiebe, for example, or Ryan Palmer, or any of those guys. So I'm going to loop them up into groups just to make it easier to kind of give a breakdown of a few guys in each region. If you sit there and you're like, I really like so and so, and you guys didn't highlight them, we're not going to highlight everybody in every group. This is going to be a 4-hour podcast. We're not trying to do that to you guys. So we'll start off. We have the top three guys all above 10,000: Scotty Scheffler, Justin Thomas, and Russell Henley. Obviously, Scotty Scheffler, his price point on DraftKings at 14,400 is tied for the highest price point he's ever had. It's with the U.S. Open when it was at Oakmont this past summer. His odds of plus 210 to win the tournament are also the lowest in the last 10 years since like Tiger. He's a stroke better though than every other golfer in the field. Just bear in mind before you instantly throw him into the lineup because of how good he is, or you ignore him because of his price point. This is the first time he's ever going to actually play the Pro-Tour Championship. It's also the first tournament he's adding on to his schedule since I think the Charles Schwab in 2024 when he added that on. So he doesn't always play new tournaments. He kind of sticks to what he's good at and doesn't really play anything else. But I do think Scotty Scheffler will be just fine this week. You have Justin Thomas, who's played this event twice, but not in like 6 years. He does, I think he's got 2 top tens here though in both of those starts. This is a course where you probably won't have to hit driver on most holes, which if you remember last year, was a Justin Thomas struggle for a majority of the season. I think he's very viable to get to at this region or at this price, especially 10,200. If you don't want to start with Scotty, totally fair. Go down to JT, throw him in the lineup. I think he's gonna be great setup. And then Russell Henley's obviously just an iron guru. So I think he's viable to get to at 10,000. I don't know if he's the first guy I love to have at the top of my lineup. I think it just makes more sense. So much drop down to the lower to the nines before you just take Henley at 10,000 because for whatever reason they elevated him. But he's viable. I get it. If you want to go to that range because of his irons and how spectacular he's been playing, totally fair. Into the 9K range we go. I'm going quick. There's no Jack this week, so I don't got to hear him blabber around for 5 minutes about, the 3 guys that he loves that happens to be the same as mine. In the 9K range, we have Sam Burns at 9,700 down to Maverick McNeely at 9,000. So again, this is all the rest of the Ryder Cup guys outside of Harris English, who for whatever reason, 8,900. But then obviously the 3 guys above it, 10K. To start off, we do have Cam Young. In the last 36 rounds, Cam Young is second, just behind Scotty in strokes gained total. He's also lost strokes just one time in his 14 starts to end the year. So you're basically hoping that he's taking great in elite level form over into this fall. His putter has also been really good, all things considered. So you're just hoping that Cam Young continues to stay on the form he had to end the year. That is really all you're looking for from him. Then we have Ben Griffin, who in the last 36 rounds, he's third in strokes gained total behind Scotty and Cam Young. Ben Griffin was T15 or better in 10 of his last 12 events to end the year. His irons have also been spectacular. I think he is a prime candidate for a guy to really come out this week and give it his all. You might wonder if some of the Ryder Cup guys are actually not going to try very hard this week because they're just kind of warming up. I don't think Ben Griffin has an off switch. I think if he's coming for this event, his goal is like, I am winning this tournament if my life depends on it, because that's just how he rolls in every other golf tournament he plays. Where Scotty might be like, yeah, I finished T15 and like that was fine. I didn't need to win. I was just prepping for the Ryder Cup in a couple weeks. Ben Griffin doesn't play that game. The other guy who won't play that game is JJ Spawn. He's kind of an expensive guy, but he's played this event a ton. He's played this event more than any other guy above 9K in terms of price point. He's played here so often. He's played here every year since 2017. He plays well here. He's got some statistically solid to good finishes here. Hasn't won here in years, but a very viable option in the low 9K range if you want to get to it. Beyond that, we're going to get into the 8K range, starting with Harris English at 8,900, down to Michael Thorbjornsen at 8,000. I do have a few names I like in here. First one is going to be Jackson Quavin. He's the #1 amateur in the world, and honestly, it's really not that close. He statistically blows away the #2 ranked amateur. After the U.S. Open last year, he played in 3 events and he finished T11 or better in all 3. Now, those were like relatively weak fields. It was like Barracuda, the IPSCO, and like the John Deere. But again, we're at the Pro Tour, and once you take out these 10 guys on the Ryder Cup team, this is basically a John Deere Classic level type of field. So he also finished T5 at Wyndham, though. Let's be clear on that. And he gained in all statistical strokes gained categories that week. He has been playing as well in the Walker Cup, which I think is in like Reseda, California. Don't quote me on that, but it's in California. But he's been playing there for the last week. So he's in plenty of form. He's one of the few guys that's been playing golf consistently since the end of the Tour Championship. I think he's a very viable option this week just because he's going to be in form and he actually knows what's going on. So I think Quavin's a great option. There is also Max Homa, who's right above him. You might still have wounds from picking Max Homa from last year since he really didn't play all that well last year. But the last month of the year actually looked a lot better than it did the previous like 6 months prior to that. He actually gained on approach in all 4 of those straight starts to end the year. He had 2 top 40s in those 4 starts. He's also a California guy who's won this event twice and has 3 top 10 finishes in his last 4 starts here. If there's any course for Max Homa to pop off on, it's a course where he's got like 4 or 5 weeks worth of break with a reset, ending on good terms to one of his best statistical courses of the season for him. So I think he's viable to go to. Do I wish he would be 7,600? Sure. But if so, everybody's throwing him in at 7,600. So I get why they threw him in at 86. So I think he's a viable option. Other guy I'll mention in this 8K range is Akshay Bhatia. In the last 11 starts to end the year, he only lost strokes gained approach at the U.S. Open. His irons were pretty otherworldly at that point. His putter has been giving him a bit of a fit. In his last 8 starts or so, he's struggled in about half of them with the flat stick, which is really not what you want to see from a 23-year-old that uses a broomstick. But I definitely think he's worth keeping an eye on based on his iron play alone. I don't know if I'm going to go to him just based on the bad putter, but if he fixes it in these few weeks off, he's going to probably finish T15, T20 here, minimum. So I think he's a solid option. Beyond this, the ranges start to look real brutal. This is where the true like Pro Core Championship range starts to come into play. So we're starting the 7K range. We have Patrick Fishburne at 7,900, all the way down to Adam Hadwin at 7,000, or Takumi Kanaya, or Quade Cummins. Jack's guy, Quade Cummins. Again, brutal range in all honesty, in my opinion here, but there's a few guys that I think stand out. You have Taylor Montgomery, who I think could be a great option in this week field. He's one of the best putters in this range, and between the Korn Ferry Tour and the PGA Tour, he's basically been on a heater in his last 10 starts. He's got 8 top 40 finishes. I think he's super viable. He's only 7,000, and we're going to follow Jack's rule here of where it's below 7,500. So if he just makes the cut, he's going to be okay. And I think in a weaker field like this is a great spot for him to do so. A second guy I like is Mac Meisner. He's gained in all statistical strokes gained categories in each of his last two starts before he took the break. Those two events were the Wyndham Championship, where he finished second, and then the 3M, where he finished 14th. I mean, just that alone gives me viability to basically rely on him, especially in the 7K range. Do I wish it wouldn't have been a month since those two starts? Absolutely, because I would have been way more confident to throw him in my lineup if he had gone right into the swing of things with another event the following week. But we think in a weaker field, he's still a viable enough golfer that he should be fine. And then if you want to take a chance, there is Sahith Theegala in this range. His form is quite poor, but if you think the month off like potentially did a lot for him, he has really good history here at Silverado. He has 20 rounds, and in those 5 starts, he has 4 top 15 finishes. I think his fifth finish is like a T45. He's also gained over 1.2 strokes gained tee to green per round across those 20 rounds. And according to sources, I did some digging. It looks like he was injured for a majority of the year. It looked to be like there was an oblique, and then a foot, and then a leg that kind of just hampered him throughout the year. I guess the rumor he said on the back end is that he should have taken additional time off. So, if you think it was an injury and he's healthy now, or if you think maybe it was just a rough stretch and the time off saved him, this is again, this is a viable option to look into now in this field, especially in the low 7K range. He was, good enough to make a Ryder Cup team 4 years ago. So who's to say that he can't get back to that form again in a pretty weak field? So with that, we're gonna get into the 6K range. We're gonna go David Skins all the way down to, let's just say, Gunnar Wiebe, because I mentioned him previously. This range is brutal. There's about maybe 2.5 or 3 names I truly like. But everybody else, there's a lot of landmines here. A lot of guys that are going to miss cuts and not play very well. First guy, my favorite option is David Lipsky. He's 6,900. He's got the best history of anybody here in Silverado below 7,000. He has finishes of second, T30, a missed cut, and T22. He's also gained in all statistical strokes gained categories outside of the putter in each of his last 5 starts to end the year. I think you're basically hoping he carries everything over this week into the Pro Core, which seems like a viable option that he can do. Do I think he finishes second this year in a pretty stronger, topper heavy field? No, but he could easily finish T25. And at that point there, you're very okay with the fact that you got a T25 out of a guy at 6,900. Another option that I'm less sold on, he's probably my half of this range, is Ben Coles. He's been a great player for about a month until you hit the green. He struggles with the putter, but the rest of his game is quite good. So if he's able to carry his way to a mid cut just based on approach and off the tee alone, that's something viable. You're looking probably at more like a T45 to a T60 though here, because his putter is just not going to help him out enough to get him any better than a T40 finish. And the last guy I'll mention is Martin Laird. He's similar to Ben, where he's been playing great everywhere except for the putter. So he's a viable option this week. He's got great history at Silverado. And in that history in Silverado, he's only lost with the putter here twice in like in the last 11 starts. So I think he's a very valid option to get to. And honestly, his putting history is way better here. So I think he's probably better to get to than Ben Coles as it is. So Lipsky, Martin Laird, and then Ben Coles. I think those are the 3 good options in the 6K range. And we'll leave it there. If you want a DraftKings lineup, I have my 6 guys are Ben Griffin at 9,400, Cam Young at 9,300, JJ Spawn 9,200, Jackson Koivin at 8,500, David Lipsky at 6,900, and Martin Laird at 6,700. I have 4 bets this week. I have Patrick Fishburne over Matt McCarty. I have Jackson Koivin over Davis Thompson. I have Ben Griffin to finish top 20 at plus 105. And I have Justin Thomas top 20 in round 1 at plus 165. Beyond that, I have a wild card pick. So if you want to go for a little bit of a higher odds, but again, we don't feel very confident on these. These are ones we throw like a tenth of a unit on. Sahith Thagala to finish top 20 is plus 260. So it's worth kind of monitoring more than anything else to see if he hits that. You throw your 10th of a unit on, you hope it hits, and you call it a day. Beyond that, my winners for this week, I have Justin Thomas, JJ Spawn, and Max Homa. Those are the three guys I feel most confident about this week, beyond like a Scotty Scheffler. But in realistic choices, I want to save the opportunity to use Scotty Scheffler for a bigger tournament. Do I think he probably wins this tournament? Yeah, I think he's got a high likelihood. But give me one of those guys if I can't take Scotty. So with that, that is the Pro Core. I know I went really quick through this. It's like a 20, 30-minute, podcast call. Jack's not here. He doesn't have 30 minutes to blabber on. He'll be here next week or 2 weeks for the Ryder Cup. 3 weeks for the Ryder Cup? He'll be here in a couple weeks for the Ryder Cup is the point I'm going for. But beyond that, I'm going to leave you to it. Hopefully everybody is also enjoying football. Happy Monday. The Bears-Vikings are playing tonight on Monday Night Football in Week 1. Go Bears. But beyond that, we will see you in a couple weeks for the Ryder Cup. Have a good one. Deuces.